The Undercountry Music News is an excerpt of the weekly internet broadcast Undercountry Music, which features music from great country artists you won't hear on mainstream radio, as well as a roundup of the most interesting country music news of the week without all the fluff. This program you are listening to right now contains only the news portion of the show. To listen and subscribe to the full weekly episode containing the music and interviews, please visit undercountrymusic.com or simply subscribe to the Undercountry Music Podcast on iTunes. Let's get into it. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you know, a lot of bands perform on television, say. Doesn't mean that you have to own a television station, do you? You know? So just because record labels come along and fund a product and put it on a shelf someplace, I mean, those guys know their business, but just because they do it doesn't mean that bands should have to follow in that pattern. That model is an old model, and it's really hard. It's hard to get rid of because it's so romantic. You know, that moment when you see your face and your songs in this package, in this product that's wrapped up in cellophane, you know, it does a lot for the ego to see your record on the shelf in a store. But our records never hit the store. We sold either at the show or online, so it never went retail.
And you guys, it looks like you stay pretty busy gigging and doing, you know, regional tours and things like that.
We'd get out of town more if it didn't cost so much. And I don't know if fans realize it, but band members' family pay for these tours to happen. So the next time you pay $15 or $20 for a ticket to see a show, don't forget that that's been subsidized by at least $10 a ticket by the band's family, because you can't sell enough tickets on tour to make a living. It can't be done. Even bands very popular, selling, let's say, a couple of thousand tickets a night, are still making less than living wage.
No, I get you. There's some people out there doing creative stuff, though, coming up with some very creative merchandise, doing house concerts and things like that.
Well, you have to, yeah. You absolutely have to.
Where people will pay a premium to have you come and entertain them personally and things like that. But I'll tell you what, kind of jumping off of that point, it's a great segue to the next portion of this show, and especially the very first story we have coming up, because it's time for the Undercountry Music News! Are you ready to get all Walter Cronkite with me?
I'm ready. What do you got?
First, preface this because just now joining us on our talk show formats, there are a couple of talk show formats that carry this show, and the reason that we isolate out the news onto the talk show formats is because they are on platforms where I can't play the music. I don't have the opportunity to play the music because either one, they don't allow it, or like in the case of Spreaker will allow it, but I'm using Spreaker as the gateway to iHeartRadio. When I get 100 followers on Spreaker, then I can get the show onto iHeartRadio most likely, and iHeartRadio will only take talk shows, so I can't have music there. And I also take the news portion of this show and I put it on YouTube, and even if I have your permission to play the music, I'll still get copyright flags for doing it. And if I get 3 copyright flags in a year, there goes my YouTube account. They pull it down. So anyway, for those of you just joining us, I am sitting here. I've got on the line with me from Delaware, Water Gap, Pennsylvania, Mr. Samuel St. Thomas, the leader of the Americana alt-country band Bovine Social Club.
Hey, how you doing, everybody?
Yeah, well, we were just sitting here talking about how to move stacks of wax, discs of plastic, CDs, in other words, and while you're on the road, and the ins and outs and things like that. And I've got a story coming up here in the news about that in just a minute. But the Undercountry Music News, I want to let you know what it is. Samuel, have you heard this show before? Are you familiar with the Undercountry Music News?
I haven't heard the news portion, but I was listening last night to some shows. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the Undercountry Music News is a portion of this show that I do right in the middle of each show every single week. And what I do is I go on to Google and I type in the search term country music news. And whatever websites appear on the front page of Google, I go into them and I look for this past week's country music news and the most interesting articles. Now, since I started doing this, I found something very, very interesting amongst many of these websites that have this high ranking for having country music news. And what I found was that many of them have no country music news. You go on there and they're just shoveling press releases from, whatever stupid thing artist management companies send to them, like,
Right.
Miranda Lambert's new flavor of dental floss that she absolutely loves, or some crap like that.
Right.
But usually there's like one or two stories, and then I get those one or two stories, and I move on to the next site. I try to find their one or two stories, and then I compile them all, and then to where I get you just the good, essential, the real country music news, and then I bring it to the listeners of Undercountry Music each and every week, and that's this portion that we're in right now. Now, there is a twist here. Now, if I go onto a site that doesn't have any country music news, I award those who are derelict in their duty with the dreaded Undercountry Music News Wet Belch of the Week. And I just finished a bowl of pesto pasta with a pesto that I made myself from trash from my garden.
Nice.
So I'm cooking up a good one for you here.
So what are you typing in?
Well, I've
Were
already
you
done
typing
it.
something into Google? Oh, you already done it.
Already got it. It's right here in front of me. We are ready to go. Are you ready to go?
Okay.
Are you ready to be adventurous?
I'm ready.
This could ruin your career.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, good.
I'm gonna take the risk, baby.
You're going to jump on that grenade.
I am.
Okay. All right. Over at CMT this week, they have the Undercountry Music News Wet Belch of the Week right out of the gate. I didn't even get past the first website. All they had was BS over there, just press releases. That's all it was. It's like people's toenail polish and, the voice and just junk. But, last week I did not give anyone the wet belch. As a matter of fact, I found a lot of good things at CMT last week, so nobody got any belch last week, so I guess it had to come back around. We're going to get into the story now, sort of what we were alluding, along the lines of what you and I were talking about just a few minutes ago before we broke in with the news here. And, that's about, the state of the music industry and the way that music is sold these days. Because over at countryweekly.com, they have the story this week about Roseanne Cash testifying before the House Judiciary Committee, and this happened on Wednesday, June 25th in Washington, D.C. And she testified on behalf of the Americana Music Association and songwriters everywhere. Oh, I'm a songwriter. Was she there on my behalf? I didn't ask her to go.
Of course.
Anyway, it was on the issue of music licensing, digital use rights, and compensation for people who make music. The story said fair compensation, but since that is a bias, I took that word out and I just put compensation for people who make music. Roseanne focused on the issues of revenues for streaming music, a sound recording performance license for artists, and an update of rates paid to songwriters and protection on streaming sites for recordings that predate 1972.
The cutoff, I haven't heard about that. But I've been reading about these digital rights royalties,
Yeah. Well, she stated that, quote unquote, now I'm going to get into her actual quotes, that isolated illegal websites have morphed into a multinational juggernaut that threatens to decimate the livelihoods of all musicians, songwriters, and performers. And she went on to state that, and this is still her words, there is a team at my record label devoted to issuing takedown notices to pirate sites. It is an absolutely futile gesture, end quote. Well, no wonder she's not making any money. She's thrown a bunch of money on a team of lawyers to issue takedown notices. How much is she paying those lawyers to not collect anything for her?
Well, yeah, that sounds kind of counterproductive, because if you look at some of those numbers, I think we made 50 cents last year on, let's say, Pandora, Spotify, all those. And like I said, we might have made 50 cents. So, yeah, for me to get a lawyer, what are the possibilities in the end, and how difficult is this going to be? The animal's too big. We've invented something that has done away with a certain capitalistic sector.
And well, here's a bigger question. I think it's more to the point. Who the hell is pirating Roseanne Cash music?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean, are there just throngs of crazed teenagers out there who've just recently discovered Roseanne Cash, and they're all foaming at the mouth over at Napster or on BitTorrent and just grabbing, the 7-year itch?
Yeah, I'm wondering why they chose her as the mascot for that. How did she get that spot to speak for me?
Well, that was the Americana Music Association. She went on their behalf.
Oh, really?
Now I think 10 years ago, Johnny Cash had appeared, so that's why they sent her up there, because it's more of tugging at the heart.
Well, listen, dude, I appreciate her efforts, and the efforts of her record label, and the efforts of everyone fighting for this. But reality and logic tells me we've created something way bigger than we can manage or police. It can't be done.
Oh, I absolutely agree.
Well, as an example, for instance, if you type in Bovine Social Club, you'll get thousands of hits on websites that have our content on. They'll steal our whole web page and put that on their web page. There's absolutely no way we can police all that. Are all these people making money off of us? I have no idea.
Well, how do you think I got the song of yours that I opened the show with?
Yeah, right.
What I did is I went to your Reverb Nation page, and I just took a little dongle out of my headphone jack and then back into the input of my computer. I pressed record in GarageBand. I hit play on your website, and in 3 minutes, I had your song.
Yeah. Hey, well, see, there you go. So we have, and there's nothing that I can do about that.
But I did have your permission to do that, though. No, not explicitly, but I have your permission to play your music on my show, and it's for the show. So I didn't go out and do an overt illegal act here. I assume that you're cool with it.
Let's compare this to milk, if you will. Indulge me for a half a minute here.
Okay.
Let's compare this to milk. If every family in America got vote, the milk business and the cheese business would be over tomorrow. We all have our own goat teeth. We can get our own goat milk and make our own cheese. That's it. You see what I'm saying? At one time, that was the case. There was a cow in every backyard at one time. And, of course, we've given that market to agribusiness so that they can milk our cows and make our cheese and our ice cream and so forth. But do you think that Haagen-Dazs was worried when Williams and Sonoma makes an amazing ice cream maker? Oh, no. But that's the way of capitalism. We invent things that eliminates other businesses. And I think that's what's happened. And musicians got to get used to it, come up with something else.
Exactly. I mean, there's a million ways to make a buck in this world. Now, music itself, the actual music itself, since the beginning of the record industry, has always been a loss leader to sell other products, whether it be vacuum cleaners or, in the beginning, the wax cylinders. They cost almost nothing, and because they wanted to sell the players. So, and that's kind of how the whole record industry started, and songwriters are paid next to nothing to create music, and this was all so that, the record players can be sold, the little cylinder where you put the needle down. And I saw a really good talk about that from Will I Am, and he just said, he doesn't worry about that with the Black Eyed Peas. He's saying, they sell so much other stuff. The music is what promotes all the other stuff that they have to sell. That's what gets everyone excited and into the other products they have to sell. So the moral of this story in this day and age, use your music to get people excited about your act and use it to funnel them over to the other products that you have for sale. If you have nothing else for sale, well, there's your first problem right there. You should have hats, sunglasses, t-shirts, have unique things that no other group has. Put out a book, charge for signings of the book, go do, public speaking on topics or whatever, and use your music to excite people and raise their awareness of you. And that's, that's what the music is for these days.
I'd like to sell pickles.
Well, there you go. Bovine Social Club pickles. I'd buy that.
Pickles. But the problem with that is you carry a couple of cases of those around it. They're heavy. The idea of a record is certainly romantic. Will we put together another record like we did for our debut? I'm not certain. We might. But I will be the first to admit that it's a romantic notion, and it's not made for profit anymore.
I think
that day's over.
I believe you and I can agree on that. But let's move along here with the rest of the country music news for this week. All right, Grand Ole Opry star Jimmy C. Newman, the Cajun cowboy. I was fortunate enough to see him perform this past year at the Grand Ole Opry. He died in Nashville on Saturday, June 21st, following a brief illness. He was 86 years old, and he joined the Opry in 1956. That's a long run. I thoroughly enjoyed his show. He had probably the most energetic show of anyone at the Opry that night that I saw, and it was headlined by Alabama, who I was really looking forward to, but they totally put me right to sleep. Over at GAC, Great American Country, the Wildhorse Saloon in Nashville, the place with all the sculpted horses playing guitars on all three of their floors. Anyway, it celebrated its 20th anniversary on June 19th. That's a good place. I like that place. Still over at GAC, Maggie Rose has won an Emmy for her song, Get Ya Game On, which she wrote for Comcast Sportsnet's coverage of the Washington Redskins 2013 season. Do you notice the interesting unspoken twist in this story here?
No.
The twist I was going after here is that they gave her an Emmy for a song she wrote for the Washington Redskins, which is currently embroiled in a lot of controversy over that football team's name. There are a lot of people that are lobbying Congress and refusing to do business because they're very offended by the name of the Washington Redskins.
Well, on that, I mean, if I could comment on that, why wouldn't they want a name that everybody likes? For instance, it's like if you're setting up shop, and you're opening up a store, you want a name that every single person in the universe likes.
Oh,
that turns no one off. So why wouldn't they want to change it? Change the damn thing.
Well, it's probably the history because it's so old at the time they named it, and now they've got an entire franchise built up on it. It's definitely tough because once you change it, all the old time fans are who weren't offended by it. Now you've just offended your hardcore base of fans that love you to appeal to people which actually may just be protesting it and might not all be all that into football to begin with.
Right.
It's a sticky thicket there. What do you do? Anyway, over at tasteofcountry.com, Joel Crouse announces his debut album, Even the River Runs. Who the hell is Joel Crouse?
Even the River Runs. I have no idea.
Okay. Well, that was the only thing close to news they had.
You heard of him?
No, never heard of him, but that's about the only thing that saved them from getting a second belch on this show. Over at theboot.com, some of our listeners may recall a couple of weeks ago I reported that Randy Travis, who suffered a stroke and heart attack last year, had been spotted back in May at a Dolly Parton concert, and that he was up, walking around, and looking pretty good in the pictures. I also pointed out the glaring absence of any mention of him speaking at all. Just that it was good news to see him up and around and about and going to concerts, which was very good news. Well, it's finally come out in the news that Mr. Travis is still unable to speak over a year after his stroke and heart attack.
Wow.
And
that's sad.
Yeah, I know. But, he had a great voice, was silenced. But who knows, we may get it back someday.
But, it makes me think of my own mortality. But it reminds us, we don't have much time, life is short, so we got to make use of every minute we got.
We most certainly do. Moving along here, Colt Ford. You familiar with Colt Ford?
No.
He's the guy that a couple months ago released a rap version of Achy Breaky Heart that also included Billy Ray Cyrus.
Yeah, I heard about this thing.
It was a terrible song. It was easily the worst release of last year. It was so bad. It was literally the worst song. Oh, and not even the worst song, the worst video I've ever seen that I absolutely could not stop watching.
It sold a lot of records, didn't it, or no?
I'm not really sure. No. Well, apparently he just released a video teaser for his upcoming song, Dirty Side.
Oh.
And you can watch the video teaser for that over at theboot.com. And this song sucks pretty much as bad as his rap version of Achy Breaky Heart. And if you'd like to go indulge, by all means, go to theboot.com and you can see the teaser and, get all ready for when this steaming pile actually drops.
I'll give that a shot.
And also over at theboot.com, Garth Brooks' comeback shows at Croke Park in Ireland. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Croke. They are scheduled for next month, and they are proceeding despite protests from locals.
Really?
The Irish are all ired up over Garth Brooks here. And
what, they don't like it or do like it?
They do not like it, even though country music has its roots in Irish folk music, oddly enough. But no,
what is the problem?
Well, there's a city ordinance that only 3 concerts per year may be held at this park, and Garth is doing a run of 5 shows.
Oh.
My word. It's an outrage!
The Irish will love it. They love country music.
I'm sure they will. But anyway, the shows are going forward. All right, over at NashvilleGab.com. You know what Nashville Gab's got this week?
What's going on there?
A second wet belch of the week. They got nothing this week. That's all. I'm sorry to burp in your ear twice here. We thought it was all behind us there. But you know what? If they got nothing, they got nothing. Country Standard Time. Luke Bryan headlined his first stadium show and made history this past week by setting an all-time record on June 21st for sold tickets for a country concert at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. It's kind of over your neck of the woods there.
A bit west of us.
Yeah. Well, Luke Bryan entertained more than 50,000 fans, and then the very next day there were stories on the internet with just how trashed the place was and all the garbage and all the aftermath of it. Apparently it was just a war zone out there.
I read about that. Saw the photos, yeah.
But isn't that the case with most stadium shows? That are either country or rock or metal or what have you like that. That's not, classical or anything like that. If it's more a rowdier type of music, that's pretty much par for the course. I'm sure that wasn't
I don't
shocking.
think it's specific to any genre, though. In front of my house, I might pick up a dozen cans a day.
A dozen cans a day? You must be in a very urban setting where you're at there.
No, I'm out in the country.
So people are just driving by and chucking beer cans out at your house?
Every road is this way all the time.
All right, we're going to round out the country music news here over at the 615, which is a subdivision of Billboard.com. Jeff Bridges is going on the road. The actor famous for roles in films such as Crazy Heart, The Big Lebowski, and True Grit. He's taking his music to fans in the Midwest and the East Coast this summer, along with his band, The Abiders.
I haven't seen any shows scheduled in the Northeast with him, but I'd go see him.
Yeah. And, I'd like to see him on stage with Chris Christopherson because I need to see that just to make sure that they're not the same person. And this has been your Undercountry Music News. For those of you who are on our talk show format, we've been hanging out here with Samuel St. Thomas, the leader of the Bovine Social Club. Maybe you could tell them where they can find your music and what's coming up next for you.
We'll be in Philadelphia area at Melody's Cafe coming up. I'll be down in Nashville doing something at the American Pickers. I think that's the 19th of July.
American Pickers, that's owned by the guy who does that the TV show.
Yeah, that's right. Antique Archaeology or something?
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
and they do performances.
That's a lot of fun.
Is your whole band going to be there, or will it be you solo?
I'm going to come down and pick up a couple of players. I know a bunch of people that live down there, so a buddy of mine over at Gibson Custom Shop is going to come over. So that'll probably be a trio, quartet. I'm not sure how many people will show up. And after that, doing a couple of festivals, jamming for the animals. That's in near Reading, Pennsylvania. We'll play pretty regularly at Rodeo Bar in New York City. So between the Washington, D.C. area and on up to Vermont is where we've been touring. Good list of all of our shows are on our website, bovinesocialclub.com.
That's bovinesocialclub.com. You'll get that link in the show notes for this show right here, as well as the links to all the artists you're hearing. Okay, bye-bye talk show formats. Now, real quick, we're going to get into a special portion where we stop flapping our gums. I'm going to hit 2 songs in quick succession. We're going to give our thoughts on them, and then we're going to get out of the show and play one more song from the Bovine Social Club. That sound good to you?
Sure, man.
This portion is called the Undercountry Music 1-2 Song Punch. And first act we have is Drop Top Lincoln from Colorado, and they've got their song, $6 Suit. You're hanging out on Undercountry Music, episode 124, with Neil Smith and
Samuel St. Thomas.
Thank you for listening to the Undercountry Music News. The Undercountry Music News is just a small excerpt of the weekly, hour-long internet broadcast Undercountry Music, where I, Neil Smith, not only round up the week in country music news and put my own spin on it, but I also play music and have great interviews by lesser-known original country acts, the kind that you won't hear on mainstream country radio. If you're thirsting for that, get on over to undercountrymusic.com where you can listen and subscribe. You can also subscribe via iTunes to Undercountry Music. Thanks so much. Stay under, stay country.